Good morning. It's the 9th of September, 1998. For the International Cinematographers Guild, we're here today with that distinguished cinematographer, Mr. Doug Milsome, BSc. Hello, Doug. How are you?
Good. Very good. Nice to have you here.
Oh, thank you for being part of our Heritage Series.
I want you to be sure straight away, if nobody's ever heard me give these interviews before, I'm very pleased you've come back to do another, because I'm just dreadful at performing naturally in front of a camera. My job is to get paid to stay well back behind the lens, which of course I do much better than this.
Doug,
I'll do my best anyway.
This will be great, I'm sure.
I'm
sure. Have no fears. This is all amongst your peers and amongst your friends. So it's a good thing. All right. Well, we usually start off with a little bit of personal history, and could you please tell us where you were born and what sort of education you had, those sorts of background?
Those sorts of things.
Yes.
I don't think I can remember. It was a very basic, formal education. I don't think my parents were that rich they could send me anywhere special, but I did get to county school, which was a scholarship from just general school, and went on till about 15 when they couldn't wait to get me out to work to earn some money for the family. But I did go on to night school, and I did quite well at art. I must say I was very interested in
now, was this in London? Or was this
in London,
in London,
where we schooled. Basically the centre of London. Right.
What school was it?
It was in right in the Kensal Rise School.
Kensal Rise.
Yes, which is sort of Willesden way, northwest London.
Mm-hmm.
So it started there.
And is that where your home was?
Yes, we lived fairly near there. We moved around a little bit. It was always central London. Sort of, we were Londoners, if you like. My parents, both of them, born there.
And the school that it had some photography courses?
It did actually. When I went on to further education. It's called night school, just to catch up, because I wanted to pursue the art side of it. I did get a couple of awards with art, and I wanted to pursue that end. And I had a natural inkling anyway towards it. So I went on to night school for a couple of years. And then, of course, I was, 16, 17. And I got offered a job actually with rank in the art department at Pinewood Studios there as an assistant to animators. They were basically graphic artists doing animation for Rank Screen Services, which is an advertising company, but based at Pinewood Studios, which was really good.
Oh, Pinewood's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you studied art, I mean, classical art, paint, art, drawing,
no,
and painting?
or
just the overall?
Yeah, overall.
Yeah. But by the fairly young age of 16, that's remarkable to
Well, we were starting out of school quite young in those days, yes, we were. I think my father was at school when he was about 12.
But that's great. So at the tender age of 16, you found your way into Pinewood Studios, but in the art department.
Purely by accident, actually. Yes, I think
accident? What happened?
Well, there was a course open to people there, and I took advantage of that, basically, through rank. But I soon gravitated, actually, because even before, the art side of things, I was still basically, interested. But I had this thing about photography. I had a camera, the first thing my father bought me, I think.
Oh.
When I was quite young, I was doing weddings and things, and formal groups, sort of that sort of thing. I used to have my little darkroom, I used to potter around there, but I've always had that, thing about pursuing photography as well. So it enabled me to couple both those desires into one when I finally found that the rank side of things also had, rostrum cameras, which, and they did animation photography, slow motion, stop frame stuff. So I got into that, and then finally left the art side of it, because they were so good, these guys, and I wasn't, and became an assistant rostrum camera operator.
So the rostrum camera,
which is still based at Pinewood under the same umbrella of rank.
The rostrum camera is a term. That's a term we don't see too often. What does that mean?
The upright camera. They photograph from a bench over a side. It was mainly for titles, but the animation work was more interesting, where you did actually model animation. I spent like 3 weeks doing a Macintosh coffee, a sweet. Job, which was 36 little toffees, all animated, playing various instruments. And the animator had to move one, and we took a frame. I think it took us 6 weeks to shoot 30 feet. We were buried in this little vault. But that sort of thing, that's the sort of thing.
Before the toffee melts, you have to get a shot.
Stuff, It really had everyone playing an instrument and marching down the street.
Wonderful.
Like 30 of them. It was actually it did very well, but I thought I couldn't handle too many more of these.
It takes a tremendous
exacting
amount of
and rather tedious, yeah. Anyway, rank finally the advertising side moved out of Pinewood and went somewhere else into London, which I didn't want to do. So I was offered a job with actual rank, the feature side, And that's when I started the course at Pinewood. It was like a 5-year deal.
So it was a formal course. It was a formal
yeah, they took people on, and as a training
But you approved
scheme.
yourself to the
Yes,
the
I got in with it because it was all there, and because I met the camera department, HOD, Bert Easy in those days, who operated. And they had resident teams there anyway, on staff cameramen. and various, I mean, like there's 4 or 5 cameramen, I think, on parole. Like they had actors contracted, they had camera crews there contracted. And even clapper boys, which I became finally after about 2 years as an apprentice, because you go through the mill of working, again, special effects, which is visual effects department then. And then you spend 6 months at the laboratory, which is a very useful.
So they really put a good groundwork for you.
Absolutely. And then you come back finally and work with another assistant on the floor as an apprentice, as it were. And finally you get your sort of union ticket, which allows or permits you to earn a grand sum of about £4, which I think was $6 a week at the age of 18. To work then on the feature side as feature. I did lots of, as a clapper boy, did lots of features there, you know. Then.
So by the time, let me get a timeline going here. By the time you're about 20, you had gone through this apprentice and working through the system.
I was about 20.
About 20.
Finally left, yeah.
And that sounds marvelous, but it really grounded you from what you had done with your still photography when you were quite young, you know, doing the weddings and all that. You knew where the f-stop did and exposure, and then you progressed through the art world, and then back to camera again, all before you hit 20. That's marvelous. What a great.
Well, it was because it's a good scheme, you know. I always think that they are very profound because I mean, not all the guys knew at that time what happens to the film after it leaves you. You know, the lab experience I find rather crucial, and now it's still. I find it great guidelines for me to draw experiences on, because I do know when I talk to labs what they're talking about. And I know when they're not being honest and when things are right, or but it doesn't change the basic lab side of film processing since the 50s. Basically, I mean, I don't think the basic process has. There's other techniques out there now, but now, of course, it's a lot of video stuff being done because of that. That's another area. But I did like that, and in fact, I stayed on a year at Rank Labs. I thought it was very good to stay on, and I thought of maybe, and then trying to get back to Pinewood again. But I was called up to do my army service at 20, so I had to go in the army for 2 years. So that. Did they make you do anything? Put a nasty hole in it. That held you up for a bit longer.
But did they make you do anything bad there? Or did you have good service in the service when you returned?
Good service?
Some service.
Queen and Country. I did my piece. I think it was King then. Was it Queen? No, it was Queen. And yes, it was. I didn't get lucky. Didn't go abroad. But I mean, I think I was on like the second year of the Guns and Aberoni when I got my call-up papers, and I thought I was escaping it completely because I'd had a deferment through Rank for 3 years. You know. But of course they wanted enlist more people. They needed to top up some groups somewhere, and they brought in another 7 intakes, unfortunately, which I was included in. Yeah, and I never knew quite what I was going to do in the army, but I luckily did get into the sort of kinemacore side of things, where I did recruiting films, for 16mm. So it wasn't a total waste of time. But it was tough getting back in the film industry afterwards, although Rank had this option scheme where you could pursue. Again, a further year, they had to take you back on because you would get committed government jobs like the army, enlistment, conscription. They're obligated to retain your services after, but I passed on. The money hadn't gone up much, and after 2 years in the army, which they paid even less than Rank in those days, I went freelance. I became a freelance, so I went out to the great big world, and as a second assistant.
As a second assistant?
Yeah, yeah. So I was 22 then, and married with in fact, not with 2 kids.
So your social life was progressing dramatically at the same time. And so now at 22, you finished your service obligation. You're freelancing. What is the union in England? What do they call it?
Well, it was then the Association of Cinematographer and Allied Technicians, ACT&T.
ACT&T.
Yes, but now I think it's called something else. They disbanded that basic title and. Back to or something now.
And having that card, did that allow you to work in certain circles?
Yes, you have to have that in England. They were pretty strict about, films all union. There was no non-union films. It was all union, so everything had to be, quite right too. And I think it worked quite well. They were limiting to the amount of people who could come in, and they, they contained the industry to a workforce that was, able to compete with the level of employment, which was good. It's not exceeded in any way by redundancies. There was always work for everybody. I'm talking about the 60s, which were really not halcyon, but they were years where they were frightfully busy. I mean, when I left Rank, they were doing lots of films every year, and all these actors under contract were continuously going from one picture to another. But it was and also the cameramen were too.
It's also kind of sort of coming into a rather nice period for British filmmaking. A lot of projects started to happen. say the Guns of Navarone is what you left, but but what sort of projects did you then find work in?
Afterwards?
Yeah, after you
well,
got
it
back
was like,
freelancing.
straight away I was shipped out to, I did a thing called the Sands of Kalahari for, I don't know, the guys that did Zulu, Stan Bagg had a company called Penn Dennis, and they did this thing in Africa called Kalahari, which I went on. We were 10 weeks in Kalahari Desert on the Namib side, so that was the Cyan field, I remember being the director, which was a very healthy experience, except then, of course, you know, I had to take it because we were so broke with the army taking all the money, you know, and not having much really under our belts before I went in, and then getting married during the army. I thought my wife deserved, you know, to live in a better style and standard to which she was accustomed. So I did this job, which took me away, but she was heavily pregnant with a daughter at the time. So she had the kid while I was actually in Africa, which really wasn't, you know, very difficult.
She stayed in
She didn't come out to the Kalahari. No, I don't think there was too many wanted to go on this expedition. It was really rather, you know, I mean, South Africa, probably in that era, I always called it carbuncle on the arse of the world. And if you're in the Kalahari, it's like a mile stuck up it, you know. And there was nothing there at all, absolutely nothing.
But what a great adventure.
But I loved it because I came back as fit as a flea. And, and with lots of dosh, which was great for then. You know? So we had some money to buy a house and get started again. So that kicked off in a way, basically. But then we went on to Yellow Rolls Royce. And, I don't know, Where Eagles Dare and films like that. I was pretty busy. I was stuck at it for nearly 16 years. The break came, I think, from Casino Royale. But,
that was the James Bond movie?
The Sellers version of a James Bond movie, which I was on for a long time with John Huston was directing this segment of it. And I got offered the pictures as a first AC, which was Blow Up with Antonioni.
Oh, wonderful.
So I was absolutely delighted to, you know, start thinking now about other things other than money and making a career of this thing, you know, making it,
and
you know what I mean, pursuing something which was intellectual
and coming to the front of the camera and following focus and looking at the camera.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I've done quite a bit of it, you know, as you do when you're a second. You're always peering over the head of your first AC and watching how it all works. And often you do you stand in for them a lot. After all that time, I was nearly 10 years as a clapper boy, really, given the army was obviously 2 years away from it. But you get forgotten very easily when you go away from this business for 2 years. You know, it's like starting again when you come back.
So, who's your director of photography on the Antonioni movie?
Antonioni film was Carlo De Palma. Yeah, Carlo De Palma.
Carlo De Palma.
And he does a lot, I think, now with Woody Allen. I think he does, doesn't he?
And that was that was a pretty bold movie for its time. It was swinging 60s and the you know,
66 it was. Yeah,
right?
I remember.
And I recall him chasing an imaginary tennis ball at the end.
Amazing. And we had 9 cameras doing one close-up. I remember around David Hemmings. I never could quite figure out why we would have 9 cameras, all basically the same size, the same lens. We had 9 40mm lenses.
Wow.
And when I saw the editing, it was just brilliant, the way he used this stuff. Every time a camera shutter went, we had this, you know, this slightly off center. Very interesting man. I mean, you know, I just thought he was incredible. We painted houses different colors.
Did you always carry a lot of cameras for that show? Or was it,
no, just on occasion.
Just on occasion?
We carried 2 or 3 most of the time, though.
But still 2 or 3 all the time. That was pretty innovative.
But just occasionally you had these... And I never read the script, so I didn't really quite know what it was about. And I was more. Finally, I did after about 6 weeks. I thought I better read this because this all seems very strange to me.
A lot of people didn't know what the script was about.
I don't think many people see it.
That was one of the interesting.
David Hemmings was just amazing. You know, I mean, I think he was. I mean, and he was very bold, courageous stuff. He was really quite, you know, I mean, for what we were doing in the '60s, you know, it wasn't until I think Clockwork Orange I realised you could get away with films like that in England, you know, and perfectly. They had a message which wasn't always violence and sex. It actually were anti. They went away from that. You know, it was sort of, don't do this type of, you know what I'm saying? It's, you know, I think certainly with Clockwork Orange it was anti. You know.
So Clockwork Orange was soon after that.
Yes, I think it came, well, I did a lot of stuff as an assistant, I must say. Piles of it, which it always seems to, I always forget. Most people remember, but I don't. I only seem to want to remember really my cinematography credits were interested in.
Well,
but have you got any there? Maybe you could remind me.
Well, was this?
Oh, I mean, as an assistant. No, these are all DP.
These are all DP.
DP. I mean,
it's quite a list that Doug.
Well, it's you know,
they're. But I don't know. It was. I think
I did some Bonds. I did also some, you know, with Blake Edwards. I did some of the Panther things, which were rather good. Which we had great fun making, and And then I think the Kubrick thing came along because I was sort of replacement assistant. Stanley has he's very fussy about definition and sharpness of the image, which was true as well. And I think they had a couple of things where it wasn't right, and I came in to take over, which I didn't do the whole show. I just took over for the last 8 weeks.
And which show was this?
Clockwork Orange.
And Clockwork Orange.
Just a little after, I think, we were doing the Bonds and all that sort of stuff. The early ones, The Spy Who Loves Me, and
it was John Alcott.
Was that
John Alcott?
John Alcott, yes. First time I worked with John on commercials and bits and pieces.
So he knew you.
Yeah, we knew each other, and of course we developed much more strengthening relationship as a result of Clockwork, which I finished with Kubrick, and I think we got on fairly well. But I could see, at least I was still there when they finished shooting, so I gather I wasn't going to get replaced, being another assistant cameraman getting fired for some reason.
Well, Stanley had worked his own camera on many of his early features, and he had saw himself, I'm sure, as a cameraman also. And
he did, yeah.
A great visual sense, to obviously. I mean, we were talking Kubrick movies. It must have been quite. I think Clockwork Orange went further than anything at the time visually, that between the sets and the subject matter and the use of things. I mean, the stop motion bit, all that stuff. How did from your point of view, was this just too much? It was overwhelming, or is it cutting it down little bits and pieces was more manageable and handleable than the whole as it finished off? Was it fun?
Oh, absolutely. I thought it was just brilliant. I mean, I'm always, it was always a great privilege to work for people. But then when you start doing Clockwork, I realized, he liked to operate a lot himself too, as you say, and he loved wide-angle lenses, and he had he lines everything up very specifically. So it was 9/8. A lot of the film was shot on the 9/8mm, which he operated himself, And he managed to walk with the camera, which I find quite extraordinary. He just shuffled along, and he did his handheld work, which, was brilliantly steady in many ways. And it worked, but he did move it slightly. It kind of punctuated certain things, he used it. And he walked with it, and he did all. And I was very close to him, always there breathing down his ear. He's like there when you're an assistant, how did you get to even hear what he's thinking, And so and he had a lot of lenses, and he buys a lot of stuff. He buys all the equipment himself. So that's the interest I found being an assistant with him, because you go through everything thoroughly. You check everything thoroughly. Weeks, usually in advance. And, it's a different way of testing. So, Still's lenses he has remounted, he buys them all.
Sure.
Every Nikon lens in the book we had. And then cameras adapted to take Nikon lenses as well as anything that's out there. So, this is where I think your knowledge, you draw on everything when you work with them. It's like sort of getting paid to go back to school. Very little money, that is, of course, but and it's a great learning process. And this is what I found complete. I think when I finished Clockwork, I thought I knew everything about the camera. I did, about the camera.
About the camera.
But I'm only interested, really, in the camera, Camera lighting and technique and stuff like that. And the way John worked, too, with very low levels of light. He was like the first, I don't know, people have been called Prince of Darkness in the past, but I think John basically was the one that really knew how to work absolutely down the toe end of the wedge of light, and
like
using just what
at
minimum.
2.0 all the time.
No, well, it was even faster, a lot of the stuff. Because why he purchased a lot of these storage lenses is because they were fast. The Kimuras and the Omegas and the Agfas, they were sort of 1.3s and 1.2s and things like that. The Ageno 0.95 we used quite a bit of. And
well, the film stock,
and but the wide angles were always too slow. So this is when we got into this other 0.70 stuff. When we did Barry Lyndon later on, he purchased the real super speeds and managed to get different focal lengths from basic prime 50s, which we did.
Well, Clockwork
but that's
Orange,
later on.
You're talking about like 100 ASA film at the time.
Yes, that's right.
So everything had to be. If you were wide open, you're still. Talking about 50 or 60 foot candles to make images.
But isn't it marvelous? There's only one color stock, and everybody got a handle on it, loved to use it. And a lot of cameramen, didn't after a while need meters. They knew the stock so well.
It was a 52-54, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was 52-54. Yeah, it was all that was around,
Yeah, and that was
good stuff,
bulletproof stuff.
Absolutely.
If you knew that stock, you were in good
that
shape.
shield around you. It's sort of very reassuring to know your film. But people like Douglas Milsome never used meters, and nor did. 2 or 3 other cameras I remember at the time never used meters. They just knew the levels by eye. You get caught out now because this stuff's so fast out there. You can't do that.
You get fooled a little bit. Yeah.
Well, John never metered anything. I remember Alcott. He used a black and white Polaroid camera with a shutter, an old basic. So I've got 3 or 4 of here, and I started liking. I used myself as well, and so he got his exposure balance basically. Although it was a black and white, it wasn't color, but he got his balance. He knew basically the levels at which he could operate, because sometimes you can't even read the levels. They're so low with a regular meter. So the camera did actually show what he would actually be getting on the film, you know.
So you did a little test with the Polaroid?
Did a test with the Polaroid, took a Polaroid, and then, you know, from that we worked. We had to be controlled, of course.
Open a little more, down a little bit more?
Yeah, that's right. Play with it. Play with it. And in fact, I used this camera. I bought 4 or 5 of these old rollback cameras, actually, which were still around. In fact, I've got them now still.
They're great tools.
They're a good tool. They are time-consuming. On a TV show, you haven't got really time for one to get the image to come out before they want to move on, you know. But with Stanley, you get quite a bit of time to, you know, to really make your mark and extend yourself like he does, you know.
Clockwork Orange had, just to go back to that from an assistant's point of view, here you're doing rolling shots, you know, driving down the road and all kinds of point of view shots and, you know, little Alex's stuff. I mean, what else did you pick up? Did you pick up lighting from, you know, the approach, or was it just the overall, I mean, the approach to it that he used?
Yes, I think it was, yes. It's, you're absolutely amused by the work, the difference sort of working with people like him to, you know, most others that you work with, you know. I just wish I knew sometimes what he was thinking when he was doing it, you know. So
sure.
I'd be 1 step ahead. I never was. I was always 2 pages behind, you know. Yeah, I think so, you know, and all the tools, all the things that are out there he's using, you know, that's, you
that's
know,
the major
that's
thing.
the thing you catch up with, all the stuff.
Sure.
You know, and we're good people, you know. He surrounds himself with great people.
Good actors who are
always, you know,
who always are in the part.
Yeah, yes.
And don't.
But that was the first, as I say, the first experience. He got even more experience when I later on did Barry Lyndon with him, you know.
Well, now was that soon afterwards was Barry Lyndon?
No, because it was about 3 or 4 years later.
Because, okay, so what did you do in between times? Did you, hardly in
well,
between
I was still
times, but
plodding on, you know, making a living. But I was doing, as I say, doing. I suppose I don't remember lots of films, you know.
Okay.
I did lots of I mean, I did the Storm Seeking Ryan's Daughter and things like, not the main movie, but the Ryan's Daughter version of it, where we were out in, you know, on the west coast of Ireland for, I don't know, we were there sort of 6 months, waiting for, well, I was there 3 months waiting for the weather to get
my goodness,
nasty,
waiting for the weather to
get to where you wanted it. And then we shot for about 6 weeks in all, but we got the most amazing stuff, you know, there. But, and as I say, you like films like Eagles Dare and the Bond pictures and the Blake Edwards films. I did a thing with Frankenheimer called The Horseman. I mean, lots of films, you know. With,
so you kept busy.
With all the cameramen. The Adventurers, I did 3 with Claude Renoir on The Adventurers, which, if you remember that, we were shooting mostly in Spain, Italy, and
so
South America.
Great assignments.
Huge movies. They were like big films.
Yeah,
6 months, 7 months pop. And a couple of the Bronson movies I did. Which the last one was Circus World. I think it was called Magnificent Showman in the end, which I was involved with, and that sort of. And you know, and the Star, when it came to England, I did all that stuff. So I had a lot of 65mm experience from the Star, which I think the Gertrude Lawrence story, which Ernie Wise came over to England to shoot. We shot a lot in the south of France, and then in London. So they had their assistants with them, and I think in the old days, Hollywood, they couldn't bring their guys into London and work because the unions used to forbade it. So they had to be there to show us the ropes, how the gear worked, because it was 65 and we hadn't used it a lot, although I had from Ryan's Daughter. But and so they were hung around, but they were allowed to do anything. So the unions demanded that we actually do it ourselves.
So you got experience with these large formats.
Yeah.
I mean, that film's that wide.
Yes, it's huge. I know. It was a big fat sort of blint construction.
And a huge camera.
Yeah, they are.
Big icebox looking thing, huh?
Yeah, that's right. It's fascinating now. I mean, it's just like a BNC, but it's just, you know, big negative. It's getting used to handling the film that size too was always, you know, something you were unused to, so you needed to break in on that stuff. I think the guys that did the Hollywood sort of stuff, which this was, you know, were technicians. They really were. They knew it wasn't just focus pulling. You were a technician, like with Technicolor when they used all the Technorama 3-strip stuff. You know, it's very good grounding, basically. I never got involved with Technicolor, but I thought, you know, when Ernie Wise was interesting to work with too, you know.
Well, from a first assistant's point of view, the 65mm, I mean, aside from just the large format, I mean, all the lenses are huge with the focus marks. I mean, it's so much critical. The depth of field goes away.
Absolutely, because you're using wide long focus wide-angle lenses, basically. I mean, like the widest was a 60 millimeter, you know. And you know, very shallow in terms of the tolerance, the depth there, you know.
Even when you stop down, there's not much depth of field. Is that true?
Only Laszlo was not only Laszlo, was it? I forget the cameraman was on the Gertrude Lawrence story, but he worked pretty deep. He used a lot of light, so he was good. Which was a refreshing change after Alcott, who worked like 1-1 all the time. I was now working at 5, 6 and F8, which was great, you know.
Find your
absolutely. I mean, you know, and it was with equipment you could, you know, like the early Panavision cameras were marvelous. They were very friendly, friendly user type cameras for assistance. But when, like the early BLs were very hard to work with. The early BLs, the blimp, you know, 3s and BL3 was in blimp. They had the blimp every lens and it had strips around the lens which you recalibrated, which really didn't actually lock into the exact distance. There was also this bit of play in the wings because they were rubber. The wings on the lens were rubber, and there's a little bar. So there was this little, you know, there's this little tweak you had to give it to know you were taking up the lens, because often if you didn't hit the dead line of 5 feet, working at say 1.4, you had to be right on with those things, you know. So you had the mechanics of worrying about stuff, not so much whether you get it right or wrong, but whether the lens was reading what you hoped it was saying, you know. Because with Panavision it was very much easier. It was you could see the lens, the cameras were quieter. And so I used to plug for using, always trying to get onto Panavision movies in those days, you know. But Alcott was very Arri-minded, and they looked after him, and so was Kubrick. We should buy their equipment.
Right.
So we bought all the BLs and all the Arri 2Cs and stuff like that, you know, and with the exception, as I say, of the freeze cameras he converted for Nikon uses. And,
so you kept active with lots of other projects, and you worked with the larger format, all the different formats as they came along. And then the Barry Lyndon show came up, and you were still the first assistant.
First assistant, yeah.
I
just kept going. I mean, it was good, you know. You got a steady income there, you know.
Well, that's always important.
You know
Keep
what
those
I mean? My wife kept saying, "You're not thinking
right?
of going operating, are you? Because you can spend another year out of work or something."
But,
yeah.
But Barry Lyndon, we're talking about real foot candles there. I mean, we're talking about candelabras.
You really are, yes, yeah.
I mean, and it was like based how many candles around the candelabras, how much depth you have.
Yes, indeed, I know. But it really was only photographed there with, I think, apart from a bit of fill, which was very immeasurable in terms of, because we had, I think we had a meter in foot Lamberts, which you get 10 to a foot candle. So you read one, you know, you can read a scale of 10 if it's a foot Lambert meter. But really what it represents is 1 foot candle.
Right.
So you had divisions of 1 foot candle, basically. So you didn't actually have a key of 1 foot candle. You had a fill, probably half a foot candle.
Oh.
So you could measure the degree exactly where they wanted to fill. And the candles provided the key line. And that was sometimes more than 0.70, but it kind of works, you know. They had that overexposure and underexposure carried, and got a lot of photographic evidence in the shadows and stuff like that. There was never areas where it clogged up or went muddy on you. It was so clear. You could see every detail of the sets. They were big sets.
Oh, yes.
Lyndon, you know.
And those lenses.
And these lenses were just amazingly sharp.
Did they build special lenses for them, or
I think
0.5 lenses? I heard stories.
7.0 basically.
7.0.
It was 0.70, and he got them from NASA. This is the sort of person Kubrick is. How he found out about them in the first place. But they were photographing deep space, mainly Hasselblads. So they were Stills lenses with these Compor electric shutters. We know for about an hour. You could actually get exposure for 45 minutes to an hour. And he gave them to Ed CP, I think about products in those days, to sort of yank the shutters out of them and remount them so they'd fit a studio camera or a movie camera. Of course, they would fit nothing with a glass shutter, so we had to go with the, you know, there wasn't any room. We had to get because the flange on these lenses was so deep, it had to get almost into the film. So it had to be a BNC, a rack over BNC, which was very tricky. Yes, that's what we had to use. One of these guys.
One of those guys?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the gate even had to be cut back because lenses had to be almost into the film to get, you know, the definition on the corners of the screen, especially on the, although they were basic 50s, you know, he wanted other lenses. So there were compendium lenses made to screw on the front of these 50s.
To make them wider?
To make them wider, to make them narrow, whatever. Carl Morgan made two, made a 75, which we could turn around and make a 35. So that was one screw-on lens, which would make lengthen the lens. Another one, you could turn it around the other way without losing any speed at all. It was still a 7.0 lens. And then a wide-angle lens was made to adapt, which Zeiss made for him. It was a projector lens, basically, which screwed on the front of one of the other 50s to make it a 25. So we had basically a set of 0.70 lenses.
Between the
25.
The lenses and the combinations
and the combinations,
of front-end elements.
Yes.
Wow.
Huge. I mean, they were like a monster. The 25 was huge.
So 25 became that big.
It was that big. It was as heavy as the camera. Actually, it was as heavy as this camera.
So the interior scenes with the candelabras was used with that system.
Yeah.
When you did the exteriors, those marvelous.
No, we chose to stop down a little bit more than that.
With the same cameras and the same.
No, we used the BLs for the exteriors mostly, and all the reflex cameras. It was so nice to get rid of the reflex camera after because you could.
You could actually see what
the BNC you had no way of knowing whether it was in or out of focus. Absolutely not, you know. And I spent like I think it must have been close to 2 months or so, just because when we got them back from Eddie, he couldn't scale them because he needed our camera to do that because the depths had to be exactly right, seated correctly. Of course, the thing about wide-angle super fine lenses, it has to be absolutely dead right at the back. If it was ever out of focus, it was because it wasn't seated properly. And the cameras being rack over, they had to be a little bit of tolerance actually on the L plate in order for the camera to move.
Come over,
right, because the pinion. So what we did was actually swing the camera to shooting position once the operator had sort of lined it up through the viewfinder, set the viewfinder, which was a Technicolor viewfinder with no prism, just mirrors, because it was, again, to see. Well, you couldn't see anything on the set. You had to get adjusted to that level. Of course, the camera couldn't receive those low levels, so we had a very bright viewfinder made to go on the side from Technicolor. The Brimwell finder, super guy, a mechanic called Brimwell, made it for us. And then when you got this basic setup, you swung this into the shooting position, and then you put the lens on. Got the lens on, clicked it in, took it back into the film, because, as I say, the lens went into the film, so you couldn't rack the camera over anyway, because it was in the shooting position. It was locked. And then we checked the depth mainly, make sure it was actually plus or minus what it was, 1/10 of a thou. And then put the lens on and shot the scene. Now you had to shoot the scene again in order for the operator, it was just as sticky at times, if we track or move the camera or pan or whatever we did, which that it was actually lined up exactly like any parallax.
Sure.
You know, it moves around a little bit, it's never quite precise. I mean, I'm talking about a non-reflex. So, and then of course we never really knew it was in or out of focus, so we rang the labs next day, you know, and I never knew. I mean,
everyone's crossing their fingers.
Well,
and
you do because at 0.70 there's, again, very little, you know, especially if you're moving the camera, which we didn't do a lot, but some of the candlelight scenes I thought were very beautiful, you know. When it was dead right, if it was slightly off, it looked a little, just a little, you know, you needed that tweak it here and there, and it was difficult to move because lenses wouldn't move like from infinity to 3 feet in 1 revolution. They were like sometimes 2 revolutions.
Oh, really?
You know, you had 2 scales, one from infinity to 10 feet, another one from 10 feet to 3 feet, because they'd focus all the way out till they fell out of the port. You know, being Zeiss lenses, they just keep focusing.
Whoa!
And so Kubrick had this idea of, so we could more or less count on the stuff being sharp. I mean, without having to wait a day. I've often wondered what it would be like to shoot up the sort of grey-green greasy Limpopo with this stuff where you don't get a lab report for about a month.
Sure.
Imagine coming back and seeing all the data as a edgy focus.
A month later, right?
Month later. At least we got a daily report. Next day, we had a report very early. But he had this idea of putting a video camera parallel, like this is looking at me, but have another one parallel to a profile, which is being used a lot nowadays, this whole hat, but I'm talking about 73. And then we put a grid, you know, we had a monitor over the lens, shooting lens of the main camera, giving us the picture the monitor is receiving, the video camera is receiving, on which we had a grid. And on the grid, we marked various positions. So wherever the actor leant, forward, backwards, or otherwise, I knew exactly where he was on the screen, on the TV.
So you're looking at a TV
monitor over the lens.
Mounted onto the camera, mounted
on the camera over the lens. Yeah.
And you were using
with a
that as a
projected
reference
profile
point.
image of what the video camera is recording, right? And it was gridded, marked every inch of all the moves, so within the parameter, whatever.
Sure.
Yeah. Whatever.
And that was helpful.
It wasn't get up and run into the lens. It might have been tricky.
But
at least we could, when Ryan O'Neill started acting, we didn't want to have him locked off, you know, with a G clamp. He could move about a bit, which you know, but it is rather restricting how far they could move. But at the same time, it did actually, I suppose, reassure us that, you know, we nailed it. You know, the focus each time. It was great aid, a visual aid to putting focus. I got quite used to it actually at the end. and started taking it onto other shows. But you know, you've got to rely on your eye in the end of the day. As an assistant,
of course.
You know.
But it's something as precise as that. Any aid, any port in the storm will help. You know, to get you where you want to go.
Quite an innovative idea. I was quite, you know, as I say, it's for its day. Again, it was anyway. I think knowing we could, you know, some semblance of reassurance.
Sure.
You know, it's, you've never looked at the depth of field scale and look at a .70 lens, say 75 at 5 feet. You haven't even got half an inch.
Yeah.
You haven't. I mean, when they turn sideways, we couldn't hold both eyes sharp and things like that. And that's when you get it right. So if it's slightly off, it's like
the eyes are in
a
focus.
blancmange. They go like woolly and like you wouldn't even recognise them. You know, you have to sort of recast, and they wouldn't know. You know, you could actually, you could certainly implant another head into the scene. You know, you say, who was that?
Early morphing.
It was Ryan O'Neill. I was Ryan. Was it? Oh, great. It's like ectoplasm. You know, it's just. Talk about blancmange. I mean, that's exactly what it is, and especially if you were a turn out on the lens and you didn't quite know whether it was the, you know, you were in or out. They were great days, but mind you, we see it was again great experience for an assistant, and I think anybody goes through all that stuff, you know, with Clockwork and then that, and then you know when we did The Shining, another thing. He was into other stuff by then, but
these period pieces, you know, and each Kubrick movie is like a whole different experience, you know, a whole different place to go to.
It is. That's right. You know, he's had his space shootouts with 2001.
So did you work on that?
You know, BBC television costume dramas like Barry Lyndon. I suppose he's kind of porn movies, not like Clockwork Orange. He's into everything's different. And war films, of course, with Metal Jacket, and of course he's done war stuff before, of course, with
was 2001 then? You didn't work with that one?
No, I was.
That was before your time with him, right?
Yeah.
That was a space movie.
Yeah.
But so
amazing. Again, I mean that's something I think I saw about a month ago. Again, you know, at the one of those showcase theatres at Cinerama Dome, it was just beautiful to see.
Well, he always likes the big.
And he knew it was all what's happening today, isn't it? It's all what he was. The 60s we're talking about here, you know.
And his effects on that one, of course, were primitive compared to what you can do these days. I mean, the way he pulled it off.
Yeah.
Nothing looks at all primitive. I mean, it's just he had no CGI. He had no motion control.
That's right. And he still, you know, I don't know. He still doesn't like to use a lot of that anyway because it's something that's not in his control. He doesn't really want, you know. If it's a film made by him, he wants to know every stage, every step of its materialization to the screen. You know, it's what he personally wants. Because it's, you know, you make one film every 5 years or 5, 6 years.
Yes, he's slowed down.
You know, you get it right. You know, it's if it's not controversial, it's how they do that. You know, great stuff. How do they shoot that? That's what he'd love people to come out to cinema saying. How do they do that? You know, and it's as well as being a wonderful film. It's just magic to be involved with these new, you know, cutting edge of you know, whatever, ergonomics of everything that goes on. And you get your head full of this stuff. So when you do a normal like I got into TV for a while, I think, my God, if you get tagged Kubrick, I think you'll want months to shoot this, you know, you can't get it right in first take and all that sort of stuff. In fact, I worked with Dick on a job where we had to pull it off like in 17 days, you know, some night shooting and everything. And that stuff which, you know, you find you can do because of that background, that training that Kubrick taught you. Work fast, of course you can. You know?
Yes,
once you know the basic rules and understand the method, it's. But different directors have different ways of doing it. You know, it's just these days as a DP, you have to communicate and impart what you know and collaborate with the director more here in America, which is great. When you work with Kubrick, he does it all basically. He tells you what to do. You know, you have your input, but at the end of the day, it's his decision. You know, which is fine.
Well, after Barry Lyndon, you continued to work in English, British television. You did television shows. You did feature work.
Well, I stayed with features because there was always a lot of them around in those days. You know, the 70s was like booming in England. You know, everybody was flat out there. There was a lot of stuff happening. A lot of American interest too in England. A lot of American films were coming over. We didn't have an industry of our own so much. I think it was like a cottage industry to the States, but we still do a lot of films a year.
It always seems that you
I mean, really hundreds, you know.
The big features, too.
Yeah. I did something like 70 films as an assistant, I
My
think,
goodness.
You know, before I even started operating. I mean, that's why I can't really remember them. I remember seeing Mike Roberts got an award for distinguished, he's a camera operator, he prefers to stay an operator. And he's a very good one. But he got an award the other week. But he listed all his credits. And I remember Mike and I came up at the same time. We were the same age exactly. And his credits went on and on and on. A lot of those films, I remember working with Mike on and things like, but I'd forgotten about, you know.
Yes,
But luckily, he kept a log of it all. Distinguished merit. Yes, it was actually amazing, or whatever contribution he's made, because he does every main feature film, like goes to England, like Roberts operates. And I enjoy the years I operated. It wasn't very long, but I enjoy them immensely. I think what happened was I got, soon after, I think, The Shining, which is something else, which I'm jumping ahead, but after Berlin, I just stayed doing that for a while. Because I was pretty hot. They said, well, we want this guy to
he's
Barrett in. I mean, he knows all about these fast lenses, and can we shoot with these fast lenses?
Yes.
So Stanley used to rent me out sometimes with his camera and lenses to do commercials. I said, well, it'd take about a month to get, to shoot this thing.
So you kept busy with that?
Yes, and with Alcott doing commercials too. John was he did an awful lot of them, And it was good because he could choose the scripts he wanted to shoot with the name directors he wanted to work with, and didn't have to worry about doing a film for a paycheck. He did the commercials for paychecks. They filled in, and then something came along. He'd do it as a cameraman and DP. This is sort of the way I like to work now. Trying to get into other stuff because the scripts get, it ain't the best nowadays.
Well,
I don't know what
it allows you to choose then.
It does, exactly.
It allows you to choose when something, and wait for something good to come along, instead of just taking the first train out. But continue on the arc of your career. If we can go on to the next Kubrick movie that you worked on was
The Shining.
The Shining.
Yeah.
Now here you have a horror movie,
yes, indeed,
and a whole different approach. Everything inside was on stages, on sets, just a little bit of exteriors. Is that true? I mean,
which I did, yes.
And most of, even things that everyone thought were exteriors were like the snow and those are all on sets. Now that was a whole different experience. Well, how did that work out for you? You were still assistant, correct?
Yes, I was. I seemed to stay one because I couldn't. It was great, and it was actually good. I enjoyed it immensely. I just enjoyed the job immensely, and working for him. Yes, it was great because we used Steadicam a lot, and I was, Garrett Brown they brought Garrett in to do that. When it was always fantastic to watch Garrett work. He'd just done all this stuff with Rocky running stuff, but Kubrick didn't want him to run. He wanted him to walk with the camera slowly, across these huge sets with verticals everywhere, without it yawing or doing any movement, no blips, which of course Garrett could do. He did actually prove he could do that. So this tool wasn't necessarily for running, jumping, and skipping, and all the bells and whistles. You could actually almost do a mastermind, a dolly shot with it, and all the shots that he did, a lot of those dolly shots he did.
Following the little
just
car around.
Walking with somebody. Following the carts were easy because it was always, some hard mount, put on a wheelchair, and he was pushed along, and he just held the rig. It was very good for that stuff, and of course you've got low with it, which is always a problem getting real low with the Steadicam, especially with 6 foot, whatever he is, 6'6".
The big guy.
Yes, and I did, well, first up was interesting because when he called me in to do some shooting in Oregon, we wanted to do the exterior first of the Overlook Hotel where the film was set. And Roy Walker, the designer, found this picture of this place up on Mount Hood, just outside Portland, which was an amazing picture. It was a government camp. I think it was made during the 30s, when they had all this, the labor problem here, and all the people clambered around and made these immensely big hotels and stuck them in the middle of nowhere. Was there a work scheme? Yeah, but there was a work scheme, wasn't there, where the people did it for very little money. WPA,
so that's
right.
A WPA hotel? It's not a luxury hotel built for
the loads of them. You go all over America, you find them everywhere. I mean, it's amazing, phenomenal places. Anyway, the picture, as I got into Portland, I thought I'd go and talk to the photographer because Kubrick had an idea that the picture was shot at such and such a time of the day with such and such a lens, but you can tell from the still. He managed to work it all out. And as he can. This is all part of the equation. I mean, he almost had the lens height. So he told me how to stick the camera, how high up it should be, what angle of tilt it should be, and what lens it should be. And he was dead right. Yeah, absolutely dead right. So I got there and stuck it there. But what I found out, there's a ski lift going right down the front of it.
Oh no!
And this picture that was taken, which Kubrick was looking at, which Roy chose from the magazine, was actually taken soon after the place was built. So it was a long time ago. And, things have changed since then. And they had really heavy winters. Of course, he wanted the place buried in snow, the deepest snow ever. And of course, they had no snow. In fact, little snow, even at 6,000 feet. So I was there for months sitting on this shot, you know, waiting for it to snow. In the meantime, I did aerial stuff to show him how to change since they did the picture. And that maybe we should give this up and try somewhere else. No, he said, no, well, the hotel manager, Dick Constell, I remember, called the Big Banana. I told Dick, I said, well, Kubrick wants to shut down the ski lift just for a while we get these shots. Is that all right? He said, yeah, well, shut down the foreground one, but the one up behind, going to the top of Mount Hood, we can't stop that one. That's his money, you know, that's how he makes a business. So I managed to get most of that behind a chimney of the hotel so I could mask that out, and then dropped a bit lower, and then we took all the ski lift down in foreground, and all the poles, or what held the lift up, you know, we put trees in front of.
Wow.
I had an army of guys cutting down trees and people patrolling the foreground all night to see that no powder hounds, you know, scarred the foreground.
Skied it, right.
And it went on for like 8-9 weeks like this. And Dick was shut down the lift. But Kubrick promised him, of course, he'd get a big credit. Without his help, you know, with no small measure, we've been able to make this picture. And Dick liked the idea of having a screen credit next to Stanley, so we got away with it. We shot this as well. Then I went to Glacier Park and did some tracking stuff over Lake St. Montino and all that sort of stuff. So the introduction to the film was all basically me.
That's great.
Myself and his brother-in-law, Jan Harlan, who's a smashing guy, married to his wife, Stanley's husband, Christiana. And we two did it there for months, and then we came back and made the film. As I say, we went back to assisting. And then after, I don't know how many weeks shooting, John had a contract to do something else, Alcott, so he left. And he bumped me up to the light. So I went from assisting to cameraman, basically.
Wow.
But I was putting focus as well. It was very funny how you make it work with him.
So
doing both jobs.
One day you'd be pulling the focus, next day you'd be in charge
doing
of the
both.
lights.
You'd be doing, you set the focus, or whatever, you do the lighting, and then you pull,
pull the focus?
Pull the focus, yeah. I did both on The Shine.
Wonderful.
With Kelvin Pike, the operator, and people super, we had, So, and then of course, I was natural. I was going to get, when finally we got the metal jacket, he asked me to photograph it. We got on pretty well, and that.
Obviously, you must have gotten along fabulously.
Well, we did. It sort of works out,
Well, Stanley
has basically honest down to earth. I think he likes.
Stanley has a reputation for being a perfectionist.
Yes, he does.
Being very prickly, but once he finds his people, he also has a reputation for sticking to them and being very loyal.
Yes, he does like people around him. He knows a lot. Yeah, which is good because that's what it was.
So that worked out very well for you.
Yes, I think so. Rather than replace Jonathan with another cameraman, he just said, "Well, Doug can do it," And so, we got another assistant in to look after the focus, but it basically wanted me there. He trusted me to pull focus, so it was very difficult to get off that.
And the look was established by that point.
I knew what to do. We kept copious notes on what we were doing, and we put candles in this set, and everything was on dimmers and pre-lit largely anyway. So we just pulled a master switch, and the sets were lit. So it wasn't that difficult in those terms. It was to prepare, but it wasn't once we got into it.
Now
they gave them the power, the limitless power of being able to viscerally move around wherever he wanted with the light and the way it was set, which he likes to move the camera a lot. Yeah.
Now the ghost stuff in that was the gory, the blood, all that stuff. Was that those were
the elevator
miniatures, the elevators, or was we talking
blood?
Blood. I mean, gore.
Absolutely.
The twins, the beautiful woman in the tub who turns into the gag. All those things. Now, those things were like physical gags that you were doing. Talk about those things for a few minutes.
Well, I don't know how they do it. I mean, the makeup was Tom Smith. He did an amazing job on her. And switching from beauty to this creature was just. I jolt. I still see the scene. I don't know really. I mean, it's talk about what? It's all about the.
Well, were they miniatures, say for the elevator with the.
No, it's a set which we again I think we just filled it full of blood. Literally had a lift with 400 gallons of bull's blood.
So it was a full set. It was not.
Yes,
it was not a miniature.
Yeah, when it opened, that was the real stuff. Coming down on us, we had the camera in some sort of.
Tank, I hope.
I was in this tank. The blood sort of lapping all over us. It was that's the way. It's the way he is. It's not into sort of a lot of graphics, as it were. I mean, not CGI and all that sort of stuff. He was good at processing and stuff. Like we'd use different techniques to push and pull the film around. But basically, the art was always physical,
Yes.
effects. You know, there were, you know, and like the snow, it was all done. There wasn't one miniature, I don't think, in The Shining, which every set was built.
The set was built.
And,
What was that
the
snow? Was it some kind of
I think he used some
stuff?
sort of dendritic stuff for the floor, you know. And a lot of other stuff, which I found rather nasty, like in the maze, was something else which we shouldn't inhale, which I forget the name of, but I think
Kind of asbestos thing or something?
yeah, well, it wasn't asbestos, no, but the stuff,
Ash of some sort. I mean, there's some
I
nasty
have to
things that people put.
think about that, yeah. Not Ben's pine, was it? It was gypsum they make plaster Paris with, that combination of that and something else.
But they got it to blow out
Yeah,
the stick
it's
on
like
the
bitumen of, you know, Judea mixed with gypsum, mixed with something else. Just environmentally very unfriendly. That's sort of stuff I think they put in walls to poly, you know, to seal drafts, insulation material. But it set pretty well. But it wasn't nice to inhale. And poor old guy had to run around with this thing, or they had a mask on to start. But the falling snow was okay. That was, as I say, mainly flakes, potato chips, and this sort of stuff, you know.
And then, like the bar, did he use lens diffusion to soften, you know?
Yes.
And made it look the 30s look or the teen look, you know, turn of the century look.
Yes.
The Overlook Hotel in the bar. There
Beautiful.
was like
Yeah,
gorgeous. But it was a diffusion, lens diffusion?
Yes, well, like there's a low-con filter really, which we used for some of the time, which was mostly the Tiffin range of low-cons. But otherwise, filtration was not used. You know, I think
it just seemed,
you know,
on occasion.
Yes, I think it's just to soften it a little bit, without really, you know, in any way taking away the definition and such. Just to cut a little bit into the blacks. This again was a 5.4, I think, Eastman, which again we were very used to using.
Of course, Nicholson is just horror when he wants to be horror in his face.
Yes, yes. That soft light, which of course came through
the windows,
you know,
through the large
windows, and also through the bar itself. You know, was I think very wraparound light, which is rather, you know, I always like anyway. Shadowless, nothing there again. You know, but the low cons I think we use a lot of. We use some net, which Alcott had for certain other things, which I still have pieces of. But again, it's a very fine, you know, diffusion. You don't know it's diffusion.
And a lot of coupes overhead, and a lot of big effects for the windows, that sort of thing. Was that the?
Yes, yes. Through the windows, we had not for much for the ballroom scene, but certainly the day stuff in the Overlook Lounge.
Overlook Hotel and the Lounge.
There were big, or huge rigs. I mean, out there, I don't know. He used mostly those Par 64s. There were banks of those outside the windows.
Yeah, coming through
about 3 feet away from the. Gauze, whatever it was, I think it was some sort of polyester. I'm not sure what it was actually we used for that, but it was. I know it was. Otherwise, I think it would have gone up in flames. You know, be careful; it was so hot. You dim them in between shots, otherwise it got very hot at the stage. You know.
But what a marvelous thing
for you! Especially the snow outside, because it was liable to catch on fire, being styrofoam. You had to watch it. You know, it didn't overheat. In fact, we did actually burn the stage down finally.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it did go up in flames. It caught. I don't know how it happened, but it did finally. But I think we'd finished with the set anyway by that time. So we gave it to Star Wars, burnt down with no roof on it. They wanted the set for some time, which we managed to use. And finally, when they got it back, it had no roof. It was burnt out.
Oh,
I think, oh my God. So we can have the set now. We finished with it. He wanted me to go in and rescue the camera, which I wouldn't do. I wouldn't go because his cameras were inside.
The camera went up.
The camera room was inside the set, which was on fire. You know, the whole stage went down actually. The MI. It took 4 stages actually.
Oof.
Yeah. So there was that risk of it, but I mean, it was as I say, we dimmed them, but they were. You could spot the flood. Each of these, I think they had 600 Par 64s outside the window. 600
of them.
Yeah.
That's throwing some flame.
That's a lot, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oops. You got a phone call. Huh?
Do you want to record this?
Well, they're talking about some business you got to take care of, but do you need to take it? Or?
No, actually, it'll be off in a moment. Don't worry. Just
But what a marvelous opportunities for you to be a director of photography / assistant on Kubrick's movies. Well, and then have that reputation.
And for
then.
7 or 8 weeks, it went on, you know, for a few weeks.
So you finished that movie, and after you burned down the set, and that wasn't you. I know it was.
It wasn't me. No, we hadn't finished, but we'd finished with that stage.
Okay.
Finally, yes.
That's one way to burn your bridges, is to burn the set. You continued on working back to English feature making, but now you're different. Now you got more skills to offer.
Yes, I think I sort of went operating after. I thought I'd like to stay lighting, but I thought, well, the trouble is you didn't get the credit for Shining as a DP, so I knew it wouldn't work that well for me. But I didn't want to move up after 16 years assisting. I thought I must move on. And I think I did. Oh, I know what I did. I did. I went down to Australia. I got an invitation to do something down in Australia for an Australian company, actually, but to shoot it in New Zealand. There were no restrictions affecting the free use, actually. Do you want to just?
You want to get that one?
Answer that, and just tell them to ring back later or something, could you?
Okay.
There was no restriction affecting the free use of bringing in anybody from all over the world to work in New Zealand, but there were limitations to who you could bring into Australia. Mainly because the dodgy Poms, the Brits that were down there, had this union, which managed to restrict everybody and keep it more to themselves, which is a good idea. We had the same thing here with our union to some extent. So I did actually light 3 movies. It turned out to be 3 movies: Free Still Yankees F, I think called Wild Horses, and Survivor, the thing with Jenny Agutter. So it kept me there nearly a year in New Zealand working for this Australian company. Yeah.
Oh, so you went back to back working on 3 movies?
I went down and stayed there for a while, yeah.
And
sorry, can I just stop?
Do you want to get that? Okay,
yeah,
stop tape.
Sorry.
Oh. Okay, we're rolling now. Hey, we're back. How are you, Doug?
Refreshed.
Refreshed.
That was hotter
good.
than hell now.
Well, this has been going along.
I've never been under the lights before. I know how actors must feel.
You're doing so good. Please don't stop. I know you want to talk quite a bit more about being a director of photography, but in our break, we spoke about Peter Sellers' movies and working with Peter, and you thought that was a marvelous experience. Would you like to talk about it?
Well, only that, he's such a talent. I mean, Bleak and him got on so well that I think their success, when they tried to do them without Peter, they didn't work, the Clouseau things. You have to have him. I mean, Herbert Lom, Clouseau, and that stuff that he used to do, I thought it was hilarious. And I used to fall about every day working on the floor, on the set.
Laughing so much.
Because Peter used to get me into knots. And so I was pulling focus. I remember sometimes the operator, Ernie, was hanging onto the hand, and you could feel him laughing. The camera starts to shake. I'm like this, and I look at my clapper boy, he's trying to stifle the laugh. The takes used to go on, sometimes a whole roll. You just let it go, because Peter used to ad-lib. He was the master of, perfecting that sort of thing. I mean, just perfunctory. And but you had to be on your toes with him, because you never knew quite what he was going to do. So we used to lay a huge dance floor and then the dolly, put some big hot red sneakers on the grip, so he managed not to slip and follow this guy everywhere. And you really were a live wire. I mean, you had to have the wheel, couldn't use the wheels, and you followed people around. And they were anamorphic shows, so there was always a tricky bit with the focus. I used to mark up what I could I remember everywhere I thought he might go, Peter. We used to just follow him everywhere. And it was a cut print over here onwards, because we used to look at Blake after they said cut. There was no way that he was going to do it again, because Blake was in tears laughing anyway, and you couldn't very well go up to him and say, well, I wouldn't mind another one. I think I blew it somewhere in the middle. That wouldn't be on, So.
No. So did you?
They used to really worry about Peter, because he was quite ill. He'd had the heart attack.
Yes,
he was back at work again, and then we rest from 9 till 3. He often didn't used to work in the afternoons, and some days people just didn't want to come in. So they said, "Okay, Peter, don't worry. You come in when you feel better. You're up to it." So the film went on for 6-7 months. It was lovely to just do 2 shots a day. There's very few in the cast that you had to work with. Peter was just, was mainly in everything. But a delight, it was just refreshing to work. Somebody who could ad-lib the way he used
And
to
you didn't do pickups? You didn't do any coverage or anything like that? It was one take and that's it?
It involved his face, no, you didn't. You might use a double to do something on his back, or pick up his shoes, or do a bit of soft. I mean, but when you see those films, you see them all mainly. They all work in one, really. You have a little time to prepare. But and if you rehearse Peter, we do something quite different when you turn over anyway. You know, take the lens cap off.
He was always being attacked by his butler, or the butler was attacking him, and then they had to defend himself. All that was the ad-lib parts that you're referring to.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, cutting off his
and the scripts he was involved with largely too, you know. He used to help. Well, Blake was very good at writing comedy stuff. But it was a great vehicle. It was, you know, I used to love them. And there was just those marvellous times when you could wait to get back on the set and go to work next day. You know, like the Bonds, I used to like working with the Bonds of Lewis Gilbert and people like that, you know. A lot of fun. And it was 9 till 5, and Lewis loved football, so on the Saturdays afternoon we used to finish at 1 o'clock. So we could go to Arsenal and watch the Gunners play at home. That is what it was like, you know. Don't shoot tomorrow afternoon, mate, there's the football match on, you know.
Can't miss that.
Can't miss that.
Good
But
times.
then most of the pictures I did at Pinewood were 9 till 5. You know, when I was young at Pinewood, where the 40 films a year maybe Rank used to do, maybe less, sometimes more, you never worked half an hour's overtime. Because the distributor, they used to pull the breaker. Unless you warned them you wanted to go 15 minutes over, it had to be for the following night. It couldn't work 15 minutes over the day you were shooting. You had to warn them, give them 48 hours notice. Otherwise, the bloke would pull the breaker and he'd be on the bus home, so you wouldn't have any light after 5:25 anyway. Because they had their own distributor, you know, at the time. Which they still do, I think, to some extent. Not now, they don't work like that now. But those films always took 8 weeks, never went over budget. Yeah. And were always fun to work on.
So the way of doing work in England is quite a bit different than, you know, our 14-hour days.
In those days.
In those days. And now they've gone more towards
I think it's
the
just
longer
the same everywhere now.
Of
course it is, yeah.
Kind of fallen to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, they'd rather work 20-hour day than claim they've gone over schedule, wouldn't they, really?
Sure.
Or even an hour over schedule. But I enjoy it nevertheless, because there's no place like it, is there, really? The work's great.
It's so much fun. Now, to get back...
I'm usually not very good after 10 hours.
I don't think so. I think you're better off going home and refreshing yourself and be better the next day. Press on,
indeed.
you know? In our arc of your career, we left off, you had gone to New Zealand, and what you thought was 1 feature ended up being 3. So that were you now an official DP?
I was a DP, but I still have trouble getting work as a DP back in England because I hadn't done any credits, you know, which were, oh well, you know, you have to have credits. And so I went to operate, and I did 3 or 4 operating, not for long. King David was one of them actually, which Bruce Beresford directed, which I thoroughly enjoyed. We shot in all over Italy and places. Don McAlpine was the DP, I was the operator. Then a thing called Plenty, again with another Australian, because I've made a lot of Australian contacts. So this was, Plenty was a David Hare novel with Meryl Streep and quite a good cast, I forget it, John Gielgud and somebody else, but it was actually marvellous, Charlie Dance, which Fred Skepsey directed, and I thought Fred was very, you know, interesting to work with anyway, and especially as an operator. Fred did Devil's Playground, which I thought was a wonderful film years and years ago in Australia, and The Chant of Billy Blacksmith was another great classical Australian film which Fred directed. You know, he's gone and done other stuff since, and I thoroughly enjoyed that experience. And then I think another one with an Australian director. I was getting very sort of
favorite of theirs.
I was favourite of the month with Australians. Was Russell Mulcahy's Highlander, which the first one with Connery and Christopher Lambert, which I thought was, for me as an operator, was the biggest thrill ever because it was such a workout. It was all on.
Lots of effects.
And he
lots
loves the remote camera, Russell. And he loves it. You know, he comes from music videos, so he's like.
So which remotes were you using? Which remote?
Well, the Power Pod, the hothead in those days. But oh no, it was the Luma Crane. Mostly the Luma, because I remember Mark Samuelson was with us all the time. Who delves in that? Is it Mark Samuelson? Only one of Samuelson's sons does it. It was a brilliant job. And I think at that time, I preferred it. We could have had any of them, really, but I thought the Luma had a much better video assist. It had an extremely clear picture, you know, and Adam Samuelson, bless you, Adam, you were terrific. He kept it really sharp, because, you know, Dick would tell you, that's your only reference. You've got to have an opera. And on exteriors, when, you know, you kick the stuff around the pitch a lot of it electronically gets a bit disturbed, and, you know, you need tweaking. You need to be on top of it the whole time. And I remember on Metal Jacket later, I recommended the Luma Crane, and we used a lot of Luma stuff on metal. Stanley liked it too, Kubrick, and we brought in Adam to keep an eye on it, to keep it functioning all times, you know. Well, that's later on, but Yeah, so it was a lot of Steadicam, lot of Steadicam.
Did you do Steadicam?
No,
no,
I didn't. Unfortunately, Garrett taught me how to do it, but he didn't tell me how to keep my discs from slipping all over the place once I wore the rig. It was like, get it off after about 5 seconds.
Yes, of course.
But the lower lumbar.
Let's talk about operating just for a second. In Hollywood, we talk about the English system, where the operator works much more closely with the director. Is that really true, or is this some myth that we worked up?
It is.
How does it work?
Well, Mike Roberts and like people, you know, like Parker and all these people when they were doing it, they choose the operator. I think Mike, was it who directed was it Evita? You can read it this, right?
No. It's all right. The director of Evita.
Parker, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes,
yeah. Well, he chose the operator before he chose the cameraman on that. Mike Roberts was on, and that happens to a lot of directors, English directors, who know good operators. I'm not saying that's generally the route, but it's important to them they get an operator they can communicate at a level best known to them, who understand their functions, you know, and things like that. And a certain amount of that's taken away from you in here in America, because the cameraman largely assumes that role as well. You know, he calls the shots and tells them where the camera should go. Often it works the other way around in England. It does. I think the operator and the director get the setups largely, and the cameraman does his stuff. You know?
And they'll work with the camera motion and the moves and where to go and the actors.
Yeah, Russell and I devised all those things. I mean, Jerry Fisher was cameraman, very accomplished, excellent cameraman, Jerry. Made it difficult for him because 9/8 Steadicam everywhere. I'm seeing there was nowhere to hide the lights, and that's what Steadicam's all about, isn't it? Where should we hide the lights on this shot? And it was an amazing job. I don't know how he did it. You know. Granted, it was very difficult for any cameraman, you know, to do it. But the shots were devised not by the DP, and here it's the other way around. I like to define the shots myself when I'm working as a DP here, because that's my background, and I do often operate a lot too, because I can't keep my eye off the viewfinder. I can't let go of it sometimes, you know, if I see some. But often I play just B camera or additional camera, because if there's two, one alongside the other, I choose to operate one of them. But not to take it away from the operator, it's just, I think, you know, it's an area where I suppose they move on quicker here, you know, as very few guys stay in the job for long, and they want to move up to the next job, which is fine. I'm not saying everybody, but I think in England they stay, you find largely they stay in that grade most of their lives, and you know, really do. I know assistants are still pulling focus after 30 years.
Sure.
Operators are still operating after 30 years and things, you know. They do want to move on, but I think it's very difficult for them. You know, they've established, you know, themselves and what they do, and they've got a lot of named directors they work for. And, you know, it's very rewarding to do something you do well with people you're used to working with. And I think I'm trying to do that now as a cameraman, work with a lot of, you know, because it is the directors that work so close and choose, you know, largely. The results of which go to them for the work when they do on the picture, you know, they choose the cameraman here, and that comes the cameraman.
So that comes with the area.
Yeah, it comes with the area. Yeah, I enjoy it.
Well, so you continued working as an operator, and then got this was it Full Metal Jacket that you came back?
Yes, I came back and at the invitation to do
as
that.
a preface here, you don't always work for Stanley Kubrick.
Right. Okay. All right. That's right.
But you have had some marvelous opportunities.
One film every 4 years, you'd be pretty, you know.
But Full Metal Jacket
you have
came
to work
around,
with others.
and Full Metal Jacket came around, and you became you were available for it.
Yes.
And this was a big opportunity.
Yes.
As a director of photography,
Yes.
officially now.
Yes, I've had the backing of this, as I said, the stuff I did in Australia, which I showed him, which he kind of liked. But I think he would have chosen me anyway had I not done anything, because it's just, again, it's a partnership, you know, really. You understand the way they work, and they like you, and they're comfortable in your company, and, you know, I yes him to death and stroke him like mad, which of course you do. But I mean, yes, that was a great. So I came back from Australia, in fact, because I was going to stay down in Australia, not Australia, but New Zealand.
New Zealand.
And to live there. I, in fact, did apply for membership, because I thought New Zealand had a lot of everything to offer. You know, the bottom of it is super. I mean, it's like 900 miles from the Antarctica. Miller Sound is great scenery. Piano, I think they shot a lot of there. And it's Scotland, it's Switzerland, it's all rolled into one, and there's only 3,000 or 3 million people there. You know, 30 million sheep, but I mean, there's like a lot of scenery untouched, unspoiled. And I thought, this is the life for me, you know, really. And it was a good industry then, because New Zealand didn't have any, as I say, union problems. There was no easy to get work permits, unlike Australia, which was very difficult. And it was a lot of shelter money down there going at the time. But then I think Muldoon, the pig, they used to call him the pig, Muldoon, sussed this out and thought, well, if unpaid taxes are going to make pictures, I'm going to stop that. And he did, and I think then it was due to the demise of the New Zealand film industry that did happen.
Muldoon was the Prime Minister?
Yes, it did. He sort of closed that route, you know, the back door on that one. So the Australian companies couldn't bring people down freely to the Antipodes, you know, and work there. And New Zealand was a good stop for Australian filmmaking because it opened up another area, you know, which was like England. As I say, it could be in Europe making a film.
Sure.
Especially North Island. And I was down on the Bounty for a long time, and later on, second units on the Bounty, which I shot, where the ship was built in New Zealand, in Whangarei, and I was there for months while they built this ship, because I was going to sail on her, to where the film was set, in
Tahiti?
In Tahiti, exactly. Yeah. So we sailed from on the Bounty. I went on her.
Marvelous.
You know, from Whangarei, North Island, New Zealand, to Tahiti, and there's nowhere in between. It's just all ocean, 3,000 miles.
Long trip.
It took us 4 weeks. But again, that was New Zealand, and I liked the opportunity to do those things from time to time. And all this was going on when I was operating and doing features, you know, the second unit stuff, which I enjoyed doing immensely. But that was a good opportunity to again, get back and try. But they thought, New Zealanders thought I was too old. I was only 40 then, I think. They wanted young people down there. And they wanted people like, they didn't want photographers. The fellow photo fraternity wasn't one of their main imports. They wanted my wife. She's a medical person.
They wanted that.
She had no problem being there with nursing background or medical experience. You're in. But you want to say to go down and sign on the dole or something as a cameraman, they don't want to know. You know. And there are a lot of good people there. The Australians I liked a lot of, and then they're some of the best photographers I think are out of Australia too, that are working now in the US. You know.
But Stanley offered you this job to do.
Yeah, so I came back for that. I thought, well, forget the residency. Maybe I don't want to live in New Zealand. I'll maybe make a go of it back in England again.
Sure.
You know, yeah. Well, he hasn't left England since 1960. Anyway.
Well, he's found a home there. That's for
he
sure.
likes it there. Yeah. You know. Yeah.
So you came back, and now Full Metal Jacket was another big departure from what he had done before. You're talking about a war movie, a lot of grime and grit, and very realistic
Paths
too.
of Glory, of course, which was a classic, but that was
Well, it was black and white, and that was the French trench warfare as opposed to the jungle warfare, modern.
Although we were urban, basically.
Urban. So what was it?
We brought the jungle in with us.
Yes, it was a stage
planted
show.
palm trees.
Yeah, but you brought it onto the stage.
Well, no, we brought it onto. Yeah, we brought. When I say the jungle, I think we didn't think it differentiated Vietnam from Beckton Gasworks, where we shot it, because Southeast London largely played to Southeast Asia. We didn't go to Southeast Asia. A lot of people ask me, where did you shoot that? You know, this is the mastery of the man. He made it work for it. But the bringing in palm trees, I thought, was a brilliant idea. We put them in skips. We planted them always in somewhere in the background or middle foreground, and we set fire to them. He brought hundreds of trees from all over Spain into England and put them in skips, and we plant them everywhere. Skips are things you can uplift and plant and place to case,
Sure.
And we set them up there on fire. There was stuff everywhere. So I think people really did think you were in some tropical field of some theatre or other of war. This wasn't. But it was actually a gasworks which we levelled. A gasworks which was levelled to the ground, and this put it into the Tet Offensive way. It's all shot around this area, a bombed out area, which was going to be demolished anyway. And when the dynamiters came in and blew the place apart, we shot it. We just shot what they did.
Piggybacked on that event.
And used the material, we didn't go outside London at all. We did actually venture, I think, to some marshes somewhere which served as paddy fields outside Bangkok. And so there you go. So I'm just saying that it was an urban basic.
So urban show, but you got to stay right around your base.
Yeah.
You got to have control that way. And now, as a director of photography, did you pull out of your bag of tricks anything in particular? I think we saw, you showed me this article that someone referred to what you had done on Full Metal Jacket, where took the shutter out of sync to create a streaking effect. Yes. Is that something that you were asked to do? Or something
I think it's something we did to see what it would look like, and it actually paid off. I think they got all tricks of the stuff, whatever. But it kind of worked for this crazy ending which it had. This one sniper teenager, not even teenager, young girl, wipes out a whole platoon very nearly. And when we discover her in this high riser where she's just sniping the shit out of everyone. When we find her and we finally kill her, she dies in this fire because there's places ablaze. And the streakiness of it, the effect of it, like sort of just licking into her just as she goes, it was by overlapping basically one frame into another. So when the film is set, the register pins are in and is exposing, it's actually exposing a piece of the frame below, maybe a piece of the beam at the top. And you can only do it really on these old cameras where you can put the shutter, which you call out of sync. It's out of phase with the shutter. So it overlapped. So we had the streaking effect. And Ben shooting it slow motion even more emphasized that, you know. It's a thing with fire that I think works, and that's what I think Lutz was referring it to when he talked to him.
Well, he used it on Private Ryan. It's nice that he gives a little tip of the hat.
It is.
Credit.
It's nice. Yes, it's very, very nice to mention it, actually. I think these little tricks that we experimented with. I think we experiment with a lot of things, aren't you, with Kubrick, because you do. It's the whole thing. The advent of change and invention is something that when you buy your own equipment and stuff, you buy extra lenses and you play with stuff like, the false front, the thing where you float the lens up and down in the mount was something which we did, because we use a 9/8 shutter lot in order to keep the camera level and things not to distort, barrel or go to a point. We always kept the camera level and rack the lens up and down. This stuff's all the time now, but these were things we were doing.
Kind of a still camera
that's
trick.
right, the still camera trick, which basically
the bellows. That's a
yeah. But I'm going back to Clockwork Orange. We were doing that. And cameras, all the sorts of toys he has for that are still lying around. And we had 9 cameras or 10 cameras with 77 lenses. He had 77 lenses then.
Wow.
I never knew which one he was going to use next sometimes, Although we did keep largely to the standard Zeiss 1.4s, or the 2.1s, whatever, just to keep it,
Coming off that, your career as a director of photography really started taking off.
Yes. I went down to we did The Beast with Reynolds, Kevin, I think soon after that. Which I thought was an extraordinary film. I thought Kevin was an extraordinary talent too. And a young man, I think he'd more or less discovered Costner, actually. They'd worked together before.
The two Kevins.
Yeah, the two Kevins, yes. And that was a partnership that worked for me too, because when they did Robin Hood, it came back and I was asked to photograph that as well, because I got on. I think, but The Beast, I think, Kevin will admit today, was a very interesting film. It was not, I don't think it was shown widely, because it was the last film that sort of David Putman did under the Columbia umbrella,
He got
all
caught
made
up in
for
that,
10 million, whatever they were. And they were sort of buried when TriStar took over that era. They were buried. Stars and Bars, another good film which was buried. So when The Beast came out, they thought it was one of these, horror movies, you know what I mean? About a tank in Afghanistan shooting up, people. It was actually, I thought it was another one of those Hammer films, The Beast of War. So it was not largely shown. I think it got very limited release. And I think if it came out now, it would do very well. It should be
timing is everything in these days.
It is, isn't it, really? Yeah. But it's very important it is to get stuff out when you make it. It's sitting gathering dust in a vault somewhere,
But you got to Montreal to work with Bill Deere. I think Bill Deere has been a stagehand back in Detroit.
Really?
Yeah,
Had he?
Oh, right. I think that's the same Bill Deere.
I think it is. He did something in the that one for Spielberg.
It Looks Could Kill, Teen Agent.
Well, Teen Agent was that one, yes. Which it was later called Teen Agent. I think with Richard Greco. It was Looks Could Kill. Right? We shot in Montreal. Yeah.
But then the bigger film, Robin Hood, of course, which was a romantic turn for Kevin Costner.
Yes, it was.
And he did quite well with it, although his accent never did match up.
I think he tried to drop the accent. I think he did drop.
Is that what it was? He was trying to.
I think it's difficult. But again, a lot of gags in that film. I mean, we had a lot of arrow things, and there's a great promo came out of it. We did a lot of slow-mo following arrows, high speed, super high speed, talking about 3,000 frames following arrows and that, or arrows coming at you.
Wasn't that the signature of the original Robin Hood as well as?
Yes.
I mean, there was the arrow business, Of course.
Yes.
A swashbuckler.
Little things like you stuck a little arrow tip on the mat box, and in the power drill, just turning it.
Is that how it
works? With it. And the people say, how do you keep that arrow so perfectly framed? There it was stuck to the hood, about 6 inches in front of the lens, twirling away like this. And then you cut to it going into a trunk, which was shooting backwards, obviously, at 1 frame a second, but tracking away from something, shooting in reverse. So it looked like it was going straight into a tree. Those things like that we played with.
Hey, Dick, we'll use that trick next time.
Yeah, that's another way of doing it. But things like, we learned something on The Beast that, where we're trying to get, because it was all to do with tanks and going over rough terrain, and we found a place there has been for years, this wonderful gyro stabilizing system, which tanks have used because they shoot targets when they're going over
right.
you know, tank tracks and a quarter mile away and hit them. How'd they do that? You know, what keeps that gun aim all the time? And when they're moving. Well, they have a wonderful device on the tank where you put a camera.
Stabilizing.
Just locks it. That's
so you just used that, huh?
Well, we got, you know, the military weren't too keen to give us the spec on that and keeping it for years. But we later found out that works, and we use that a lot on Robin Hood for running stuff, you know. And
is it a big unit? This
yeah, it's quite small, actually. Yeah, it's quite small. Yeah, but I'm always into that sort of stuff. I mean, can you know find something that's going to work for this picture, you know. But Kevin's very good. He's young, and he lets you have your head, and it's really good, you know, because it's you know, he's very energetic, extremely energetic. I must say to him one day, because I'm like 20 years older than he is, I think I'll surgically remove your feet and stick them in the cheeks of your ass to slow you down, you know.
But so that was a period piece, and I'm just going by your resume here. Some of the really terrific things. Last of the Mohicans, which I thought was terrific. It says shared credit.
Yeah, I didn't do the whole film. I did the first 7 weeks on that, but it didn't work out, so I left. I went off and doing other things. But it's a nice looking film. Unfortunately, it's one of the better looking jobs, I think, that I was proud of, and I think it earned Dante you know, a British Academy Award,
and a
British BAFTA Award. I don't know what
18th
else
century
it got.
look to it. I mean,
beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Pre anything.
Yeah, I know, pre-Raphaelite. It was all. But it's set in the 18th century.
Yes,
really, you know. But
1700.
yes, that's right. I mean, but. But a beautiful design sets and thing Wolf Kruger built for that. I mean, amazing design, and and I think some of the stuff in that was, you know, really excellent.
And at the same time, you're doing television. Was Lonesome Dove around that time?
So Lonesome Dove was right after The Beast, I think it was. Yeah, we're talking about 88, about 88, sometime like that. You know,
and you did the entire series. Now that's like shooting
8 hours.
4 movies. You know, back to back, and keeping everything going for that. I mean, was it a real long shoot?
It imposed a virulent sense of the outback to me. I must admit, a lasting impression on America when I got out of, you know, in to see the West here. It's quite a statement, really. You know, it's
a lot different than
immemorial.
People think, huh?
You know, it is biological. It's not human. It's just been there, and I was just taken. We went so many places and crossed so many rivers with so many cattle that I began to, spit and kick in the dust. This is for me. I'm not going back to England anymore after this. You know.
Were you riding a horse?
Well, it was Australian. I mean, the director and a Brit making a western, a big western with all these great actors, and it was a thrill to be with people like DeVal and Tommy Lee. I must tell you, what a great cast. And I was very proud to get nominated for that, but I didn't win the award. But there again, you know, one of these days. But I did the return, but I directed the second year of the return of Lonesome Dove.
Oh, did you? So you've been doing some directing as well?
Yeah, the second unit, which is quite a big second unit. We shot for like 70 days, the same amount of days the first unit shot.
Well, now
that was a 7-hour version, I think that was. But they didn't have Tommy Lee for it, unfortunately. But you know, we didn't have any of the original cast, very few.
Well, a second unit has to match up with the first unit.
Absolutely, everything. Yeah.
And in terms of picking up the action, finishing the action, doing all the business.
That's right. In fact, it was tough because you only might have the actors for an hour or two while the first unit aren't using them. So you do your bit of stuff with them, and get them off the clock so they get priority. They have them back. You know, we just get. And the light's not always right. You have to shoot or whatever it is, and in quick time, and be prepared. You know, that's what I found rather. Whereas, you know, you don't have the luxury of having them for the day or the scheduled day. We'd often get Barbara Hershey for 4 or 5 hours, or Billy Peterson for 4 or 5 hours, and get on with their little bits. They may not have completed the sequence the day before. So we used to go in and mop up with them, and while Mike Rowe was doing another scene with, say, Ricky Schroeder or something like that, we were just, you know, it worked very well. I must say, it did work very well, leaping. But it was tough on us, you know, to do that.
Were you?
I was DP as well
DP
as director.
DP as director. That's what I was going to say. You carry both.
Yeah,
hats.
we were doing interiors as well as exteriors.
Oh my goodness, so that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
a lot of difficulty.
It is actually. I think it doesn't. Again, it's you wear many hats, but you find it for a short span of time. It's rather intense, you know, over a long period. It's wearing, and this is when you need a good crew around you. You know,
absolutely,
it is. Yeah,
absolutely. Now. I'm trying to read through your resume that you went back and forth from feature to television to second unit now as a director of photography. Is this what happened?
I still like to direct stuff. I think it was very good practice for me to do more. Buffalo Girls I did the second unit of as well for the same Larry McMurtry theme. I loved all that stuff, and CBS were involved. They liked me, and I think Suzanne DePass and people wanted me back for the thing.
Well,
so
Larry
I had a role with,
mean,
with them for a while.
American
and Robert
classic
Halmy, of course, was very good. I mean, Hallmark were involved with them too. And they're going to do huge stuff now. I mean, Hallmark is doing huge stuff. We've got his features, big budget television specials. Yes, yeah, I did. I did do a lot of television. I enjoyed it. Kevin Conner was a friend of mine. I remember, I remember him as an editor years ago. Did all Dickie Attenborough's pictures and stuff. He came over here to direct himself, and a very accomplished TV director. He's very quick, and he's, we speak the same language, so it was always a pleasure to work with him. Anyway, I mean, he didn't realise you were doing. And he never did much. I mean, Dick was with me on show. We seldom worked more than 10 or 12 hours a day with him. And it finishes on time, So I find sometimes television can be demanding, but at least you get on with it and you get at a pace where, it's a bit knock it out lighting, shoot the schedule. But you still get inventive and do your stuff.
Yeah, 10 pages a day is a lot different than 3 pages a day.
It is. But often, when you're pushed against stuff, you do some amazing things when you're pushed, sometimes, lighting-wise. Now, new inventions, new lighting techniques, forcing the stuff. You try anything for television. But it doesn't, unfortunately, it doesn't sort of project, though, to a huge, not saying, because of its size, I always find they always want to see all 4 corners of the screen, whereas with film, you can afford to, what they would call mood, not gloom. With television, you try it, and they call it gloomy. You know what I mean? They want to see all. It emits a small screen, small scope, so it has to be informative, and it has to reflect even across the screen, I find. But, I mean, not so with film. You can have half the screen dark, the other half.
Let me ask you about your approach to designing lighting for a feature or for television. You get a script. You read it. Tell us about your process. Do you break it down into how you see the scenes? Do you work it out with the director firsthand? What is your approach to it?
I think it's like everybody does. I mean, there's no, I'm sure no DP who doesn't read it once to find out, the second time to, get the feel of it more, and then the third time to think, well, how do we go about, the process here? What do we do? What do we involve? Do we keep it like some stuff you've done before? Do you compromise your styles and break new roads, And I think there's flexibility of having experience to be able to, compromise your style and things like that is very useful when you're reading a script, that you can do that. They don't necessarily want to look like anything you've shot before anyway. And so, yes, I approach it, that maybe, and then, go through it with the director, see what he feels about certain things. Most directors have a tremendous idea now what they want to look like anyway. They're very visual, aren't they? It's a film by so-and-so. It means they implant a lot of their own theories and considerations into the look. And often, I'd like to get them on my side when it comes to getting away from anamorphic systems, because I always feel that they're limited to me because the weight of the lenses confine you often to being on a dolly. It's awfully difficult handheld stuff and Steadicam stuff when you've got an anamorphic lens on. I mean, I love them on Mohicans when we had the Primos, but they're so huge, and you end up doing, largely using all the old standards anamorphics, which fit for handheld work in Steadicam. When you're flying that machine, you've got to limit the lenses to a size which is
usable. Sure.
So I like Super 35 in that sense now, that I try and get them, if they want to go widescreen, I try and get them to work Super 35. For me, it has flexibility and functions very well. And the setup of the lab now for I know it's an optical step, but the originals are so sharp anyway, you don't even know. In fact, I found the last film I did, Legionnaire, which we shot in up in Morocco. Lux here did a fantastic optical print for me, which was just as sharp as the original. And we had 9 cameras in crash boxes and stuff. It's very difficult, to do that.
Don't you think that
in an anamorphic system?
Don't you think that the directors, the producers, and everyone, the public sees individuals who shoot anamorphic as a higher art level than
I do like
standard 185?
Yeah,
it seems that way, isn't it?
Yeah, I do like the format. It's in fact, I like 65. I like to shoot everything in 65.
Yes.
I still think the days are coming when now suddenly with high definition. I saw some stuff of it recently. It's so sharp. It's so
getting
good.
better, huh?
It is. I can't see why they bother using anything else. To be honest with you, film to shoot on high def onto film, whatever, or the other way around. It's razor blades. You can count the pixels. I mean, you can, but at the same time, it's I refuse to work Super 8, have it that way.
Everything down to Super 8. But if someone offered
coming
you a
to us all
feature
in time.
you'd have to reconsider.
Reconsider, yeah.
Getting back to your preparation, after you've looked over the script and reviewed it with the director, and he may have storyboards, where do you then kind of draw out a plot or a scheme or a lighting schematic that you'd like to follow? Does this?
Yeah, I think a lot of the newer directors would like to lock in, the basic plot, the form, and I think storyboarding is good, certainly for action sequences. So I'd like to get involved with that. Not so much myself draw it, but I have, we call it the stick man. But it's just because the picture paints doesn't have 1,000 words often enough. And like with Jonathan Mostow on that, we prepared a great deal of the sequence, so we knew exactly where we put the camera was going to go. And at the end of the day, we get through the work by still referring to the boards. We were boards we did way back in prep. So they acted as a kind of guide, and the compositions too, were largely.
Well,
so it puts you both on the same page if you're dealing with a director who's not done a lot of. They come from writing or whatever, which a lot of good directors do. They don't have a lot of basic floor experience, so it makes them comfortable to know that where you're going to do next, and we're doing it together, so we're both, going to cooperate.
Which you do, the computerized storyboards where they now have got. You bring your laptop with you, and you've got it really. Plotted out. I mean, that's helpful.
Yes, indeed. And I think even like the Polaroids I take, although they're basically a guide for me to balance exposure. I've got burning hot windows and somebody's in front of them. I don't want to get. I mean, I know roughly the tolerances, but stocks these days come and go. You can never get a handle on them before they supersede obsolete by something new and sharper and darker and more colourful. So you're never sure really what you can see outside. You want to take a picture and show Jonathan and say, well, that's what you'll see outside. This is the balance. It's in black and white. He used to say, well, why don't you shoot it in black and white? They're great. These Polaroids are great. It's take as much colour out as we can and put as much stuff on the front as we can and destroy the image as much as we can. Because the stock's so sharp, it still looks good at the end of the day, Yeah, but I think all those elements come in. But like when you're working with Dino, Dino's from, very passionate and loyal. He loves he's basically the same school as he's always been. He loves good photography, and so it's, there's that guiding the director as well as the DP. So
Well, you're doing your body work continues on. Ruffled Stillskin, Body of Evidence, Sunchasers, Breakdown. These are all big features. Sinbad, and then the Legionnaire that you just referred to. Any of these that you like to reflect on that was you liked the experience? You're working with Cimino with Sunchasers. Is he?
Unbelievable! Michael's one of the best directors out there, I think. But he's so gifted. I just like to work more with him. I wish I could really. Again, he doesn't. The other thing, Michael, I tend to operate for him because that's what he likes. He likes the DP that operates. So that's rather demanding in itself. And it's very tough, to the guys of the unions to do that. I mean, I have people there, obviously, but I'm saying that's the way he prefers to do it. And so that you get your work cut out because he loves 360s and cameras spinning around, and he never keeps still with it. So that's kind of I enjoy that doing. I enjoy that as well because I mean, you're doing both. You have a chance to know where to put the lights because you know the limits of your shot always, and you're always looking through.
Well, it looks
I think that lamp swung off.
Well, I think we lost a little bit of. There we go. How we fixed it? The diffusion slipped a little bit. But
yes, I mean it's a broad question.
It's a broad question, right.
Because it's I mean I could write about it probably, but here before your lens to sort of wax on about things, and it often doesn't ring true to me what I'm saying. So I know what I'm trying to say, and it's often very difficult to reflect because. With every film you do, and I look forward to doing others. I'd love to do a musical. I'd love to do more horror things. I think The Shining and the things were great. I'd love to photograph, because you bring in so many elements.
What do you like to look for in lighting for a feature? What sort of qualities do you see in a well-lit feature? Something that you've done that you feel good about? What sort of situation do you like? I mean, do you into hard? I mean, obviously you use hard lights and soft lights.
No, I don't use hard at all. No, I never have. But I mean, I think it's something I learned from Alcott. I just want to use as little light and to make it look like it's well lit as much as possible. I don't really. I remember once I had a small package, and the producer said, "Well, you know, you're not like a big shot Hollywood cameraman unless you have a lot of lights, you know." So, so I had to get some more in. But I do like to work down the toe end of it, really, the wedge all the time, you know, and be. I work with great designers and great directors who build great sets. I'd love to, you know, I'd love to be involved with magic camera moves and stuff, you know. That's what television largely alienates you from, that you don't, you know, have the opportunity to work on something where, you know, you've got a gold medal sort of number to do, you know, and it's something you can really. I suppose a lot of films I see which I admire as Sir Iris work, we see Last Emperor and things like that. I mean, there's time and the beauty of those things. That's with Barry Lyndon. To some extent, you know, photographic delights, you know, really is a palette of things you will never forget, you know, that made posterity. I think that's just like some subject, which is, you know, again, period, which I love to deal with. I love to deal with anything, you know, like some of the early Dickens stuff I did. I thought, you know, for television they would stand up very well theatrically. You know, the Great Expectations, Curiosity Shop stuff I did. I think that I enjoyed doing those too. So I love, you know, like you come from England, we were steeped in history. We know a lot about it. We took it at school, you know, and so I know these eras. I know what the story's about when they say
portray it well.
You don't need to read the script of Curiosity Shop because I've read the book. Probably took it at school or something, you know. Yes, I think that's it. It's just an awe-inspiring elements of which, you know, details, design, colour, and all these things. But you find out all yourself as you go through them. You know, you're learning all the time. You know how to apply yourself and develop into one of the best that there is. And I'd like to be just master of my own craft. I've got a long way to go. You know,
oh, but you're doing so well at Doug.
Yes, but I mean, you know, I'd like to do better. You know, yeah.
You just got to keep going.
And you've got to keep going, right? Yeah.
You know, we have here working the camera today is Dick Montaigne, one of your cohorts. You've worked with him on one of your shows. And Dick, do you want to pose anything to Doug to say? Here's the microphone. Pass it over to you.
Well, I guess I'd ask you one of the standard questions. What would you recommend, or what advice would you have for people who are at various levels in the industry? Say somebody coming into the industry, somebody's wanting to move up from being a first assistant to being an operator, or somebody who's interested in becoming a director of photography from being an operator.
Do you know, I don't think I'd ever have moved up, really, had it not been for Kubrick. I would have probably just stayed as an operator. You know, I used to think I could never do as well as those guys, you know, like operating. When I was an assistant, I used to think, I don't want to move up to operating. I can't operate as well as these guys do, you know. How they do it, it's not just manual dexterity. It's not, you know, 25% handle work. The rest is, you know, knowing the script, knowing what's important, you know. So there's all those things. And if anybody really shows any, you know, any spark in that area, they should move on, or they're dissatisfied with what they're doing in their own job, they should move on. But if you like what you're doing, you might as well stay there. I mean, I did for a long time, but, you know, if you do it well. So I don't advise anybody moves unless, you know, it doesn't matter that they want to stay where they are, that they do want to move on. It does matter then, you know. I know what you're saying. At the same time, there's no, to my mind, there's no time to do it. It's not like, well, I've been 5 years putting focus. I want to operate now, you know. Gaffers come talk to DP, you know, these days. I mean, it's fine. I mean, because there's, you know, they've got probably better knowledge of lights than you would as an operator if you're going up to become a cameraman. And but it is kind of, if you're going to do it, I suggest you do it very young. That's all, right? So you get a lot of stuff under your belt. So your time in my age, you know what you're talking about, you know? And you've established a lot of, I suppose, a lot of people, you know, work with good names, directors, and good scripts. Is that about it? Is that moving? Is that moving you on, Dick? I don't know.
Yeah.
When you feel you're ready, then go. You know, if you've got sort of like 3 ex-wives to support, stay where you are. You know, put in focus.
How about what pictures have you seen in the last, say, year that you really were moved by, you know, visually?
Last year, I think Evita, I thought was a super looking film. You know, I like Garris's work a lot. But in fact, I also like Seven too. I think it's something that, you know, they're different in their way, but they are extreme in the way the power comes through the photography in that picture. Seven, you know. Otherwise, they're all, I don't know, there's not a one that really comes to mind, to be honest with you, brilliantly. I thought, you know, Darris is very much of sort of, you know, it's on the Spielberg thing, you know, Ryan was very right for what he did, and that's what it is, isn't it? When it suits the mood of the picture, you know. I don't know, I still have a favourite, isn't it, is Barry Lyndon. Isn't it funny? I thought Alcott did just an amazing job there. But amongst my list of top photograph pictures, I think it's still the masters that, you know, Roberto Storaro and people that come to mind with me favourably, you know. Otherwise, a lot of it tends to look a little bit the same, you know. I think, you know, extraordinary. I don't know. I can't think of it. I've named 2 films, have I, that I like the look of. Yeah.
But those are good samples.
Yeah.
Well, they're mainly one artist, but I mean, it's, you know, when you saw Alex Thompson from The Legend and films like superb, I mean, and Blade Runner, which had a wonderful look to it, you know. It's yeah, absolutely. I did enjoy. The other thing that Alex Thompson just shot was Merlin the Magician thing, which goes back to, you know, again, another style which he brought in. He used a lot of these special filters, I think, which I've tried using, but they don't work for me. I do for Alex, because he was using the very fast Fuji film, because it took up 2 stops, I think, or a stop and a half.
This is the Merlin that was just...
Yeah, there's also, I think, Legend 2, he shot with a 500 ASA Fuji, which then I thought was very good stuff, you know, for that sort of thing. You still shoot with a deep aperture without having to open up too much, and it sort of softened it beautifully. Had a lovely look to it, you know, like Hamlet I thought looked good too, you know. But yeah, I mean, I like to think there's something in there that I like, but I think I'm never happy with what I do, so it's always, you're trying to further, you know, again, your work, you know. You know, you think, well, as long as other people like it, that's the main thing, you know.
Well, listen, believe it or not, we're coming towards the end of this, and this has been really quite marvelous.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, one thing that you've been watching, I'm sure, is the changes in Local 600. Any comments with that? How we've merged and become a different organization?
Tremendous. I love it. Yeah, yeah. That's good, isn't it? I mean, well, that's you know, I came at the right time. You know, I've been 4 or 5 years now in the union, so it's made it a lot easier for me.
Is there certainly a better organization to national organization trying to do the best thing?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think there are people like George doing a fantastic job for him. I really do. Don't know how he does it, but I mean, amazing energy he puts into his work, you know, as well as, you know, pioneering the union side. And yeah, no, it's good. But I'm not a union animal, but I still think it's great to have that. But I think what we've lost a lot of now is the teeth the unions used to have in England. Now they don't, you know, the membership is well looked after here, I think, more so than in the UK, you know, now. I always remember when John Alcott died, he'd been paying into the union for years in England, 40 years. And when I reminded the union he was dead, they didn't know for a start he was dead. I said, well, he's been dead for 3 years. He said, well, he owes £60. I said, well, all right. So I paid the £60, and then what do I draw for his widow? And then they gave me a cheque for £160. So, in other words, he had 230 quid pushed aside for, and he's been paying into for God knows how long.
That was it. That's
lucky he died here, having spent a very short time with the IA. You know, at least there was enough money in there to you know, to do it properly. There's much more money, in fact. It was just looking after people, but it's the way it First of all, we owe 60 quid.
Of all that time. My goodness. Well, Doug, this has been marvelous.
Okay, well, thanks very much. I will maybe look forward to my book after this. Eh?
All right.
Yeah, all right.
The next edition. All right. Well, we'll fade out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.